Good morning, brethren. It's just been, or family, I should say. Um, it's been a pleasure to be here on Oahu for a little over a month, I guess. Time went by so quickly when you're enjoying yourself, and being able to spend time with brethren, with family and friends, and just preparing for Anawa to come, and just the opportunity to share again the Lord's word with folks, and just being able to be with you all again. Rick, you had mentioned the idea of like, well, what if God says no? And you said no, keep it to yourself in a sense. But I'm the type of guy that sort of I'm pretty transparent. With my team members, I told them I want transparency, communication, and always be um, just open about things. And I'll be the first to put it into practice so that you know that I'm not joking. Um, so one of the things that I had mentioned kind of quickly to my team members or my staff, I like to call them team members because I don't like to see myself as above them in a sense. But the first things that I had announced them is said, okay, as far as transparency goes, I'll be the first to tell you I want you to work here, but my family and I are going to move. So that to me is telling them that I'm being real, that Lord's going to move us some to San Diego, and I'm just wanting to be transparent, but I'm not sure when we're going to move. It's kind of when the Lord opens those doors. Um, and kind of the reason why Rick had asked, like, what if the Lord tells you no? And this goes back to when I was in college, and the idea of what I was pursuing was to be in law enforcement. I really wanted to be in law enforcement, so I took up criminal justice. That's where I wanted to take up because I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to help my community. That I wanted to follow my stepfather. I wanted to like pursue what he was in. So I went to school, got my degree, right? And then of course you had to take the police exam and all these types of things. And I kept on not passing the psych one. I don't know why. I passed everything else except the psych. I even passed the lie detector test, right? But not the psych one. Like, well, maybe I gotta go someplace else. So I tried Maui, and we went to Seattle to try there, and the answer kept on was no. Like you're not in. But then when I talked to a lot of the pastors, they said, when you're in one of the Lord's assemblies, the Lord has plans for you. He's gonna make it clear to you what you want. Sometimes the type of occupation doesn't allow you to be where you need to be. And these are several pastors that were sharing the same thing. And at that point, I had to come to realize, like, okay, Lord, where do you want me to be? Because you know what I want to do. And it seems like that the answer is no. And from that point on, is like the Lord had provided. This is before I even met Charisma. The idea of He always provided work for me. I was in construction, so I got to paint with my brother and my cousin Brada and my cousin Danson. So it was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun working in construction with church people, right? And in construction, you usually don't talk about good stuff. Usually, you can hear it in the background, like, oh, these guys are talking about some whacked out things. But when you work with your brother and your cousin, you can talk about the Lord. You can talk about different things. It was pleasing, and got to go to church, got to do all these things. So construction happened. But people kept on asking, what's your degree in? Oh, criminal justice. How come not in law enforcement? Like, the Lord has different plans. From law enforcement, where I didn't want to go into was education, because I tried to stay away from what my dad was doing. Like, I didn't want to be in education. But the Lord moved it and opened the door to where I'm in education, to where now I'm helping my community, helping the students, the children, the teenagers, and helping in that capacity as a teacher in a sense. And so I was like, okay, Lord, now I'm able to help in this capacity back in my hometown, helping out, still being able to be in Bible study and church. That's nothing taking the time away from pursuing those things. And then the idea of it moves into this position that I'm in now. Now it's broadened out to now I'm helping not just the hometown that I'm in, but I'm able to help other schools in different areas and other families. in the meantime, still being given the opportunity to share about the Lord. Because in school, technically, can't really share about the Lord. But in my position, I don't work for the school. I work with the school, and when I'm not with, I can have a conversation off on the side, and I can talk about the Lord. And that gives me a chance to share about our journey and our story. About this is the kind of trauma that we have gone through, but this is who brought us through it all. The Lord and our brethren. The Lord and our brethren helped us to work through that trauma, work through all those things. And I'm able to help the community in a different capacity without holding a gun. Nowadays, like, nah, I'll stay away from law enforcement. I don't want to touch anything with a badge on. Because now whoever's in law enforcement, and all he's doing his thing, but other brethren are in law enforcement. But I pray for them because their times are getting dangerous now for them. But I answer that question because the Lord did tell me no multiple times. And I still tried to pursue law enforcement. But it took me a while to kind of realize that's not what I was supposed to be doing. Have conversations with the different pastors, having all these types of things. So the Lord will tell us no for certain things because He has something better planned for us. I would not be able to be home with them if I was in law enforcement, because law enforcement has shift work. You're working all kinds of hours of the evening, morning, late shift, all those kinds of things. I think she even told me, like, I wouldn't marry you if you were in law enforcement or anything like that. But the idea of it is Charisma, had a heart to serve the Lord too. And the Lord brought us together so we could serve the Lord together. And that's another thing, like for teenagers, that at some point, you're going to be attracted to a girl, for females, a boy. But the thing is, the Lord may tell you, no, it's not the one, because the Lord wants you to be somebody who's going to uplift you and encourage you to continue serving the Lord, not take you away from the Lord. It's a huge difference. There's a big difference. And I can tell you lots of stories about that too, where the Lord said no to multiple people before Charisma. And I share this in transparency because it is our story. This is the ultimate goal, is to be here in one of the Lord's assemblies, serving the Lord, with a wife who wants to serve the Lord, teaching our children to serve the Lord. Our children are gonna go through so many different distractions or things that are gonna try and take them away from the Lord. Little things, like anything can take us away from the Lord. But I answered that question because Rick, I was ready to raise my hand, but I said, I can wait to share it. Because it's true. It's hard. It's a struggle. Sometimes I want to do what I want to do. Liam, he's not here, so I can talk about him. he wanted to go do the Nerf gun thing in the mall, right? And he wants to play it, but then you look at the prices, like, oh, I gotta pay like $30 for 30 minutes. That's $1 a minute right there. I was like, no way, we're not doing that. And he had a hard time struggling. He just, the no was like, oh, he's telling me no, he keeps telling me no. And then we tried to even do some other things to like try to give him the why, right? And the idea of it is, I tell him, no, this doesn't make any sense. Like, we're not paying $1 a minute for you to play in there, and there's no kids in there. Like, I would have to play too, so that's $60. Right? We're gonna get to Lord's Word, but I wanted to share this story because I want to be relatable to it. We all are gonna go through different things in our lives. Yesterday, we were able to get outdoors. And we were able to go to the Kapolei Mall, the new mall over there, and then we came across one of those Nerf gun places again. And you went in and like, okay, let's go look at the price. We went in, it's like half the price, and it's like, okay, you can do it today. And there's a lot of kids over there too. You can go play with all your intent there. And in fact, the person who was helping us even let them play for longer too. So it all worked out accordingly. So the yes came, but at a later time. But think about this, the Lord, right? He'll tell us, no, no, I don't want you doing this. And sometimes we're, oh, come on, Lord, I want this. But the Lord knows what's best for us. Like how a lot of times we know what's best for our children. So the Lord knows this. So let's get back to Proverbs 1, because that's where I started 2 weeks ago, I believe, when I gave the introduction of Proverbs 1. The Proverbs 1, just reading verse 1 right now, says the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom, instruction. So 2 weeks ago, we had made the introduction of how Solomon came about, right? David, Virginia, David, like I like the introduction, like talking about David, his heart for David's heart for the Lord, right? He had a heart to want to serve the Lord. He had a heart to where, like, I want to build you a house, Lord, for you. But then the Lord told him, no. In fact, your son is going to build it for you. And what son are we talking about? Solomon, right? But from the time David was in his service to the Lord, right, he did make a mistaken judgment where he pursued Bathsheba, right? Not a good thing. And from that point on, the Lord had used Nathan to scold David. David repented of it. Still didn't take away the fact that David still had a consequence of losing that child that Bathsheba gave birth to. But then the Lord opened the door again for her to have another baby, and Solomon came about. And this is where we're at, right? And in this piece, let's go to 1 Chronicles 22 for a moment. In fact, this is the idea about preparing the temple in chapter 20 Chronicles. But I want to get to verse 6. You start there of 1 Chronicles 22. It says, then he called for his son Solomon and charged him to build a house for the Lord God of Israel. David said to Solomon, my son, I had intended to build a house to the name of the Lord my God. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, you have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed so much blood on the earth before me. Behold, a son will be born to you, who shall be a man of rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies on every side, for his name shall be Solomon. And I will give peace and quiet to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I shall be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. He says, now my son, the Lord be with you, that you may be successful, and build the house of the Lord your God, just as he has spoken concerning you. Only the Lord give you discretion and understanding, and give you charge over Israel, so that you may keep the law of the Lord your God. Then you will prosper if you are careful to observe the statutes and the ordinances which the Lord commanded Moses concerning Israel. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear nor be dismayed. So we see here that David is giving, directions to Solomon, an idea of you're going to build a temple. But then David tells his son, the Lord told me this, that you are going to build this, and I'm going to give you rest from all your enemies. Because David, man, he had a lot of war going on around, right? But this time when Solomon is going to be in charge, it's going to have peace around for a while during his days. Now think about that peace. Isn't it super grateful when it's like you have all these different trials and challenges in a certain season in our life, right? And it's just like, oh man, it's like war. Like sometimes it's war with your own head. Sometimes war with other people. in a sense. But it's like you're always in battle, right? Constant battle. So you're in that like fight or freeze or whatever you call those things, right? But then there comes a point where the Lord helps you to get through those challenges, those trials, those tests, and then there's that season of peace where it's like, ah, this is peaceful. Like, okay, Lord, thank you. You knew what I needed, and I needed some peace around me for a moment, right? Um, watching Charisma go through her labor from early in the morning, and then giving birth. Well, we got to the hospital at 2:30 in the morning, and then she gave birth at 2:28 p.m. in the afternoon. But then just what she had to go through, like all that labor pains, all those things that you go through. And then she said the one thing that really helped was when they gave the epidural. I was like, because it was hard to watch her go through all that pain because they gave her medicine to induce the labor, right? And it's like, oh, every half hour we're gonna up the dosage. You're like, whoa, you're gonna up the dosage on this, and you're gonna see my wife go through more pain. And then of course she said, I can't handle this. Please give me the epidural. Give me the epidural. She's able to relax. In fact, she's so relaxed. She tells me, open up that couch over there and go sleep because you only had 5 minutes sleep the previous night. But it was like peaceful for that time. Well, think about this, right? Solomon's now going to be in charge. He's going to be the leader. The Lord's going to be with him, and there's going to be peace around him, so he has time to build the Lord's temple. What's the purpose of building the Lord's temple? So that people can worship the Lord, to serve the Lord. Isn't that the ultimate goal? Is to serve the Lord, to worship the Lord. And now Solomon is going to be given this time to do that. And Solomon's been given a discerning and wise heart because he asked the Lord in his dream, this is what I want, Lord, is that I want to be wise and discerning so that I know how to lead your people. That's why he did it. He asked for that. You know, it gets to the point where in going back to Proverbs 1, in verse 2, it says, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, right? To have wisdom, instruction. No, we can learn a bunch of things. We can have knowledge about some things. Sophia, I think I've been meaning to ask you, what classes are you taking?
I'm in education. I just finished a classroom management.
Okay, and you're gonna be a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I that's great. You know, the idea of being a teacher. Yeah. So, and sorry, I tend to interact this way when I preach at times. But the idea is I ask questions because you know she's gaining the knowledge, right? She's gaining the knowledge of how to classroom manage, and I can tell you that's a huge thing when it comes to teaching is classroom management because of being in education for a while. So I can have the book knowledge of it. They probably went through so many different books and like, here, this is what you do. But in order to practice it, it takes wisdom. To raise children, I can read as much books as I want on how to raise a daughter, a child 9 years later. But it ain't the same when you gotta put it into practice. You can get all these books and all this knowledge, but if I'm not practicing it, or it's gonna be different. Well, the Proverbs are giving us words of knowledge, but giving us a way to put it into practice. It's wisdom. You know, it's something that we should strive for. Ask the Lord for wisdom. Sometimes, you know, if lately it's like the sleepless nights, it's like, ooh, okay, I gotta learn. Like this is a wonderful thing. She is a blessing. But it's also taught me the ability, like, hey, I'm awake. What can I do? Well, the prayer requests that have been coming out from Wahiawa to Kaneohe, it's like I can take the time to hold her in my arms and I can pray. Putting it into practice. The little things where you think negative, like, I just have to go back to sleep. Right? Don't you think that? But it's changing my mindset of, wait a minute, it's quiet. She's quiet. I mean, she's awake, but she's quiet. but I can take the time to pray for my brother now. Like the Lord is teaching me lots of new things by having Wahiawa 9 years later. He's teaching us new things about how my service and worship to Him can grow in a different way now. I don't know if I'll be able to learn that if we didn't have it. So He puts this into our lives so that He can teach us these different experiences or new experiences again to remind us of, here, you can worship me in this capacity too. In Deuteronomy 4, just turn there. That's why. Okay, Deuteronomy 4 in verse 5 says, see, I have taught you statutes and judgments just as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do thus in the land where you are entering to possess it. So keep and do them, for that is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples who will hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as to the Lord our God whenever we call on Him? Think about that right there, verses 4 through 7. Lord's giving them the statutes. He's telling them to follow these statutes, put these into practice, so that the people around you will hear these things and they'll call you a great nation who is wise and understanding. I think about that, like, and the idea of even verse 7 says, what a great nation to her. They have a God so near to them that they can just call on Him for help. I take that for granted at times. So where I forget we have a God that's near to us and I can call out to Him. I'm guilty of that. That's not being wise. Sometimes I'm like, I can fix it. I can do it on my own. I can do that. Isn't that what Israel did at many times? They got themselves in trouble because they thought they could do it on their own. And God told them, no, it's not what you're going to do. But they kept on insisting, no, we're going to do it our way. Like, you ain't going to do it your way. You got to do it the Lord's way. How does this work in our present life? This, we can be this to people that we are in contact with. We have the ability and the opportunity to where when folks come to you and ask you, like, you are so happy. Why are you so happy? Because I have the Lord. The Lord's with me, and I'm with my brethren that I go to church with, and we worship the Lord together. A lot of people in this world do not have Jesus and do not have the Lord in their lives, and they are unhappy. We take the little example of, and see, I'm drawing a blank, Rahab. There we go. Right? Rahab tells Josh and Caleb, I think, man, I'm drawing the spies. And she says, I know of your God. I know what He did. So please spare me and my family. And what happens? She listens to what the spies tell her to do. And her household, whoever's in there, live. Why? Because she heard about Israel and their God. I just, out of all the people there, Rahab and her household. But she tells them, I heard about your God and what He can do. I want to be a part of that. Naomi tried to encourage her daughter-in-laws to go away, right? One of them did, or if I'm naming it correctly, but Ruth says, "No way! I am not leaving your side because your God will be my God, and where you worship, I'm gonna worship." Those are powerful words. That means Naomi, and when they were married, they taught these them about the Lord. In a bad situation, there were some blessings in it overall. It's wisdom, instruction. I'm going to pursue those things. Proverbs 4. Proverbs 4 in verse 5 through 7. She is acquire wisdom, acquire understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will guard you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom, and with all your acquiring, get understanding. So, saying pursue this wisdom, right? They're kind of using it to a sense of a sheep, right? You're pursuing this. An idea of it, you want to acquire this wisdom. With this wisdom, you want to get the understanding of this wisdom. Because I can gain some knowledge, but I could also use it for the wrong reason. Let's take a look at the idea of Satan, right? He tried to use the Lord's word against Jesus. He even used scriptures against Jesus after 40 days of fasting. I'm thinking to myself, man, I get hungry in an hour. Right? But he was using the Lord's word to get at Jesus. But Jesus knew who he was following, and he said, "No, he ain't gonna do that to me." Like Satan wants us to fail. He literally will put everything in front of us because he wants us to fail. The Lord is the exact opposite of that. The Lord does not want us to fail. He wants us to be successful. And he wants us to be at a point where we're leaning on him so that we can be successful. I take a look at Anava. In order to successfully eat, right? She has to be dependent on my wife to be able to feed her in order to be successful in eating, right? Physical milk. Or if using a bottle, she needs us to physically feed her a bottle in order to successfully eat. Or in a spiritual sense, this is the milk of the Lord, the meat of the Lord, and we need this spiritual food. This is where I can gain understanding. This is where I can gain wisdom. This can teach me everything I need to know about how to be a father, how to be a husband, how to be a leader, how to be a shepherd, how to be whatever I need to be is in here. Everything. It even teaches our children how to obey. I think we repeat that verse to our son, Ephesians 6. Read Ephesians 6. Keep reading Ephesians 6. I might have to change that too, but read Exodus. What? Teaches children how to obey, teaches how to be fathers, everything. 2 Timothy, I'll give you an example. 2 Timothy chapter 3. gonna start in verse 12. Since indeed all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, but evil men and impostors will proceed from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. You, however, continue in the things you have learned and become convinced of knowing from whom you have learned them, and that from childhood you have known the sacred writings which are able to give you the wisdom that leads to salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus. All scripture is inspired by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, for training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be adequate, equipped for every good work. And he goes on saying, be ready in season and I'll preach the word, all these things. But where did Timothy start to learn this? His mom and his grandma. His mom and his grandma taught him. And then, of course, he came across Paul, and then Paul started to teach him more about the word. From that point on, Timothy was a man who started to spread the word. He started to help other folks, started to help the different churches. He reminded the people of all who want to live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Well, guess what? That goes for the same for each and every one of us. We may not be like persecuted like how they're persecuted, but there are things out there that are gonna try and persecute us to get us to walk away from the Lord. It's out there. And that's one of my fears, that for our children, it's like I want to do your best and keep on teaching them like the Lord, right? The idea of like not just what's coming out of my mouth, but it's also my actions, so that they can see that I'm putting into practice what I'm saying to them. Because back in Proverbs 1, verse 3, so in verse 3 it says to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity. Behavior. I know my mom's here. We're grateful that she's here. She taught me a lot about my behavior as a child and even as a teenager. She taught me about that's not good behavior. I don't want you to do that. She taught me and Ryan a lot about our behavior. I think our sister got the better deal out of it. She saw me and Ryan get a lot of spanking, so she knew not what to do. But behavior, right? It's behavior. The Lord is trying to teach us how to behave. And he's going to keep reminding us, like how we remind our children every single day. At times, we remind them over and over. And sometimes you're like, I don't think he's going to get it. Well, the Lord's reminding us every day. Back home on the island, I was instructed to go through the whole Proverbs. It took me a while. I think 2 years maybe got through. But then as I got through it all, I kept noticing there's a theme in there. There's repeated things in each of the Proverbs. And I kept asking my pastor at the time, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself. But he goes, well, guess what? Don't we repeat ourselves when we're talking to our children? Well, the Lord's having to repeat himself because he knows how we are, that we need the reminders. We need the reminders. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I felt a little bit more comfortable repeating it again, right? So from baby to Dakota to we get to Michael, as we get to our different stages and ages, like we all are gonna hit a different challenge as we get older. So it's never gonna be the same. But the behavior is still what the Lord wants us to behave, no matter what age that we are. The instruction, the wise behavior. Liam is reading in the morning, so he's reading the Proverbs to his sister. It's practice, right? Practice. Everything takes practice. An idea of how, and brother, I ain't gonna get past this whole proverb today, so that's gotta be saved for another time. But the hope is that what we can get out of this today, this idea is that our wisdom, our instruction comes from the Lord. When we're struggling with something, we can turn to the Lord. When we're needing to encourage someone, we can go to the Lord in His Word. Everything. Like this, going through studying it all over again, I've learned some new things just to restudying Proverbs 1 again. I'm so grateful that my family and I were able to be here again this morning to be able to share the Lord's Word and hope that you got something out of it. My encouragement is read through the Proverbs, because you can read through the Proverbs and put it into practice, and you'll make your life will actually change just by putting these things into practice. My son likes reading. Hang on, let me see. Let me find it. My son likes reading this particular proverb, Proverbs 27, verse 17. And it's a great reminder. This is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. We sharpen one another. The more we spend time together, we can help sharpen one another. The more I spend time with my wife, my children, we sharpen one another. But let's sharpen one another in the Lord, not in other things. So, brother, continue to stay faithful to the Lord, continue to serve the Lord, continue to encourage one another. You folks have encouraged us. It's been a blessing to just be here, to spend time with you all. And it's nice. I mean, of course, shopping made it was a little easier. Everything's 5 minutes away instead of an hour or two away. Like go to Costco, we gotta shop for 2 weeks. We're like, oh wait a minute, I only gotta shop for 1 day. But it's just the little things. It's just we love you folks. Thank you for your loving kindness towards us. And we're willing. I don't know. We'll see. February, is that when you're okay? Lord willing, we'll see where we're at. And Lord willing, maybe we'll be back for a fellowship too. So thank you for your time.